right, hello, welcome back to Unqualified Analysis. Guess who's back? No, I'm not doing it. I'm back, and it's Unqualified Analysis here. Hey, I took a week off because been working a lot, folks, and it's going to continue this week too. I just hope for, this last weekend was some good respite, I suppose, but hoping for more respite along the way, man. We'll keep it at that. We got some sports to catch up on. Thankfully, it is the off season, and this is mainly a football show, so no harm, no foul for the most part, but we do have to catch up on some things that did occur. Anyways, here at the top of the show, might as well remind you, subscribe wherever you're listening to this or watching. Hit the like button, rate it if you're on podcast platforms, and follow me on the socials at CalebVUA. Outside of that, let's get straight into this thing, shall we? So, just a quick catch up here at the top, and I'm going to try and keep this mostly brief. Again, I'm quite tired. You can probably tell by the low effort here. I do look probably a little bit better because I have one of these here party shirts on. But it was really, if we're being honest about this, it was just because I didn't want to take off the undershirt and put on something a little bit more t-shirty, I suppose. It's hot. I'm trying to get some breeze in through here. But you know what? We're looking a little bit Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all, I suppose. A little catch up here. Shout out to JJ Spawn, first and foremost. Be the last one to wish him congratulations, I suppose. Won the U.S. Open on a 64-foot putt and was the only one to finish under par. He won at a -1. So, U.S. Open, everything it was cracked up to be. They were saying the course was going to be hard as hell at Oakmont. Ultimately, it was. The rain didn't help. I don't think that was what people thought was going to be the hard part. But ultimately, the rain just made everything ridiculous, and also it was pretty fast before then. So, hey, Oakmont, shout out to you. I'd shoot no less than 100. Sorry. I'd shoot way over 100. I'd shoot no less than 200 on that golf course. I respect the hell out of it. I wouldn't have a good time at all. So, hey, respect to all those golfers for battling through it. The Greens crew hate me. We'll just say that. Outside of that, contract disputes are going on. Neither Trey Hendrickson nor TJ Watts, I believe, reported to minicamp at all. Both are seeking new deals. TJ Watts more likely to get paid what he's looking for. Trey Hendrickson, I don't know. I truly do not know what is going to happen there because I don't think he's going to report without a deal, and I don't think the Bengals are going to pay him the money. I mean, maybe they get it done somehow, some way. I don't think they're going to trade him at this point because the Bengals are the worst team of all time at trading, and they're just completely averse to it. I mean, just totally allergic, you could say, at this point in time, and maybe that'll change down the line. I think they'll have to get sold first, but, there is something charming about old guard ownership. I believe the Cincinnati Bengals fans in my life may disagree with that, but there is something nostalgic about that you got to hold on to for a little bit longer. But yeah, I don't see it changing, and I don't know where that goes from here. So there's nothing I can really say that's insightful because I don't really have any insight into the whole situation, and no one's gonna give it to me. I'm not far away from that locale, I suppose, but no one's gonna give it to me in that area. I'll tell you what. So more notably, I would say first round pick Shamar Stewart is one of two rookies that have yet to sign their first round tenders. As you know, we've talked about this last week. The Bengals are trying to do some bullshit. Plain and simple, we'll just call it what it is. They're trying to get out of fully guaranteeing a rookie contract of any kind, and that's not just first round picks. Which to do this with a first round pick is a slap in the face. Let's not get it twisted here. That's an absolute slap in the face. But to not fully guarantee a rookie deal in general is just the cheapest of cheap assery. I mean, the Bengals are finding new and exciting ways every single year to just amaze me with their levels of cheap assery. I mean, it's truly unheard of in the sport of football, the levels of cheap assery that they're willing to stoop to in the year 2025. That standoff is still going. The Bengals are just, I don't know. I mean, they're the I don't want to get too effusive with it, but from the outside looking in with very little inside knowledge, just looking at the facts as I can see them from the outside, obviously laid out by the two sides in their own respective fashions, it looks like the Bengals truly have no idea what they're doing at the negotiating table when it comes to athletes, because they just cannot get deals done until the last minute. That's why the Jamar Chase and T. Higgins stuff was so shocking, because no one thought that they were going to get that done, and ultimately they did, because I'm sure there's a Joe Burrow factor to bring in here. But Trey Hendrickson has led the league in sacks the last 2 years, if I'm not mistaken. If he didn't lead it the year before, he was right there in the top 2 or 3. I mean, he's arguably the best pass rusher in the league, certainly no worse than a top 3 pass rusher in the entire league. And, I mean, is he at the back end of his prime? Maybe, but he's still right in his prime. There's no reason not to give him a big, and I don't know what length of deal he's looking for. Maybe he's looking for 5 years. Even then, I think you just give it to him because he's that good. And his game is more predicated on motor than it is on raw athleticism. That's not to say he's not an athlete. He is fast off the edge. He does do things that you simply can't teach, but let's not get ourselves twisted. He's not Myles Garrett as far as an athletic specimen is concerned. I would say he's arguably a more consistent pass rusher, but he's not Myles Garrett at the end of the day when we're talking athleticism. That's a guy that the style will translate for a long period of time because it's very skill-based, it's very technique-based, and it's, I wouldn't say minimally athletic-based because, again, he is a very good athlete at the end of the day still, but it is not as predicated on athleticism as some pass rushers are, where you're just looking at them being freaks. So I would still give them a 5-year deal. I just don't know, one, where they find the money, and two, whether they're willing to pay all that money. I mean, they're probably already sick to their stomachs, having paid all that money to their all-pro quarterback and their 2 all-pro wide receivers, even though they're absolutely worth every single penny. But even talking from a salary cap logistical standpoint, you got those 4 contracts on the books if Trey Hendrickson ends up going through. I don't know what you do with the rest of the roster. I mean, you got those stars in there, but what are you going to put around them? At that point, pretty much every team, and I've been pretty consistent on this, is once you have those big contracts, you got to start nailing draft picks, but the Bengals don't have a scouting department. So, and they don't sign free agents either. So I don't, at the same time, know why they don't want to spend the money with Trey Hendrickson. We just devolved right back into Trey Hendrickson at the end of the day. I don't know how that happened. But I don't know. To wrap up this discussion, I have no idea what the Bengals are doing at any given time. And I don't think anyone in their right mind does. I think you just have to be in that organization to understand it all. I'd love to sit in Duke Tobin's shoes and just see how much of this is predicated on him and how much of this is predicated on the ownership group, specifically Mike Brown and his his daughter, Katie Blackburn. I believe it's Katie Blackburn. But I don't know. We'll see how that progresses. I'm not super optimistic, but it's got to resolve at some point. Feels like it's probably one of those, lead up to training camp. You hope it's leading up to training camp for Shamar Stewart. We'll see. The Bengals are a clown show as far as their negotiating tactics are concerned, and nothing has changed. Nothing has changed on that front. Next thing up, Vikings signed Josh Oliver to a 3-year, $23.5 million extension to start off minicamp 2 weeks ago. One of my favorite players on the team. He's like a classic fan favorite guy that just does all the little things. He's got good hands. He's not going to be like a game-changing route runner. Like, he's not playing the TJ Hawkinson role. That's why we have TJ Hawkinson. The reason why we're paying this guy all this money is because he is the best blocking tight end in the league, bar none, and there's really not a debate around it. He's like a legitimate, great blocking tight end. And the things that he's going to be able to do for this running game, especially with how it looks like Kevin O'Connell is going to be approaching this season. You saw him beef up the offensive line. You saw them add Jordan Mason, who is a big-time physical running back. Having a guy like Josh Oliver in there that can sometimes bully defensive linemen, often win against linebackers. That's an invaluable guy to keep around for the long term. So I love this. I love this a lot, and we'll just leave it there, I suppose. Love that. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about Josh Oliver. I know most people don't care about, but I do, and that's going to help. And you may not necessarily attribute the impact that you see on the football field to Josh Oliver, but just know he's at the root of a lot of the success that you're going to see this year if he stays healthy. Lord willing, knocking on wood on that front. Also, not really a giant NBA fan, I suppose. WNBA fan. I mean, really not NBA either. It's kind of lost me over the last 5 to 8 years, I suppose. But Caitlin Clark. Holy shit, man. So she had a stretch. Also, she had a very busy last couple of weeks since we've been gone here. I'll tell you what, but we'll get to all of that, I suppose. She had a stretch. First game back, 3 weeks off because of, I believe it was a hamstring injury. I'm not entirely sure on that, but 3 weeks on the pine, recovering from injury. First game back, first quarter back, had a stretch at the end of the first quarter where in a 30-some second span on 3 consecutive possessions, Caitlin Clark hit some of the most Looney Tunes ill-advised threes that I've ever seen from anyone not named Steph Curry, and just buckets every single time. It's pretty cool to see a player watch the highlights, because I've watched Caitlin Clark in actual gameplay. That's kind of, and I'm not a huge WNBA fan, which should tell you the impact of Caitlin Clark, I would say. But it's honestly, it's pretty cool to see a player and kind of instantly recognize that this is going to change the fortunes of an entire league in the long run. And this is not just like a couple year thing. Caitlin Clark, health willing, and I'm sure that she's taken that seriously. It seems like she's had a really good support system around her as far as taking care of the little things so that longevity can sustain itself. Don't have any hard proof on that, just a feeling I get. But in the long run, Caitlin Clark is going to change this league because what you're going to have is, at some point, she's going to make the playoffs. Looks like this year they're going to make the playoffs. And maybe it's not this year, maybe it's not next year. But if Caitlin Clark is like the Michael Jordan sort of transcendent player that she's looked like in the first 2 years of her young career here, it's going to be one of those things where, like Michael Jordan did to the NBA, he ran into, and people forget this because of the 6 championships in the long run and the utter dominance down the stretch of his career, but first, 5, 6, 7 years of his career, he didn't win a championship. And he was the best player in the league for a large portion of that. He didn't win a championship. And the Detroit Pistons ultimately emerged and gave them a run for their money and elevated that sport from a publicity standpoint. Everyone was talking about the bad boy Pistons versus the Michael Jordan-led Chicago Bulls. Ultimately, that's what really propelled their dynasty. That's what forged them in fire and ultimately made them as great as they were, was the Detroit Pistons. I think you're going to see stuff like that from Caitlin Clark in the long run, where rivals are going to emerge outside of Angel Reese, which is, it's kind of a manufactured rivalry if you really want to think about it. It's just, the problem is the one manufacturing it is Angel Reese. And honestly, you can blame Caitlin Clark in this too, just because of her competitive nature, and she's not going to lay down when someone who is a clearly inferior player is talking as much shit as Angel Reese is. But this is all kind of orchestrated to a certain extent by Angel Reese. And this is bad blood going all the way back to college. I just don't think Angel Reese is ever going to be at that level where you can call it a true rivalry. It's more of a beef than a rivalry between two players. At some point, whether it's like Asia Wilson or one of these other great players that are currently in the WNBA, Kelsey Plum is kind of on the back end of her career, if I'm not mistaken. But there's plenty out there. Sabrina Ionescu is out there as well. One of those players, or maybe it's a player that we haven't thought of just yet, is going to emerge and become a focal point rival, if I had to guess, for the WNBA. And that's going to drive ratings way up, and that's going to lead to a lot of that growth in other fan bases that these naysayers of the WNBA have been waiting for. And that's why I look at Caitlin Clark here and I say we're watching the beginnings of something that's going to change the face of a league and ultimately lead to the benefit of everyone in the long run. Right now, you're just seeing it for the Indiana Fever and Caitlin Clark specifically. Angel Reese has kind of profited off of this as well, just based on the noted beef between the two players. But in the long run, a lot more players are going to come into the fold. And it's not happened just yet, but I do think it is going to happen at some point. There are just players that are going to stand out while other, viewers that may have tuned in for Caitlin Clark are going to see some of these other players and be like, maybe in an anecdotal fashion, like, hey, that's a pretty fun player. I like this energy. I'm going to start paying attention to this player now too. And other players are going to pop up like that. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in the course of a season and a half or whatever the WNBA is at this point. I think they're getting right down there towards the end of the season, if I'm not mistaken. I might be mistaken on that front, but don't hold me to that. Over time, I mean, it's going to happen. It's just you can't expect immediate results. We're in an immediate gratification sort of world. You can't expect those results right away. It's going to happen over time. It's just going to take competition, long-term real basketball rivalry and drama on the court that I think is going to propel this thing even further. And I frankly feel it's only a matter of time before that happens. So I'm, again, very, very excited and lucky, frankly, to live in this era to where I can watch this progress over time and pat myself on the back one day because I know I'll be right. That being said, I've bloviated enough on that subject. I went really long on that. I just I love looking at the big picture, we'll just say, and that's one that is very fascinating to look at from a big picture perspective because Caitlin Clark is, I mean, everything that was advertised and more as far as I'm concerned, just with how dominant she has been. And really not missed hardly a step. I mean, she had like a month and a half to start her rookie year where she was kind of like easing into it. But ever since that point, she's been one of the most dominant players in the league and only getting better because she's an incredibly young player. It's just truly exciting to watch, and I'm excited to see what happens over the next, what would we call it, 15 years or so, if I had to put a ballpark on it. Probably longer than that, 15 to 20. We'll see. But very excited. It's going to be a fun ride going forward. Also, what's up next? Shohei Ohtani is back pitching. First starts in, I believe, what does it say there? Since 2023. That happened last week, about a week ago from last Monday. He made his last appearance, or week ago from I guess when. Yeah, last Monday. I'm messing myself up here. It wasn't a long start. It was really kind of a major league rehab because interesting little quirk with Shohei Ohtani that not really any other player has to deal with, so it's wholly unique to him, is since he is such a dominant hitter, you can't exactly afford to take him out of the lineup as the DH. So you can't really do what you normally do with players coming back from an injury where you take them down to minor league and they do some rehab starts to kind of, ramp up. You kind of have to do the rehab starts in the major leagues. So that's why you're seeing these one inning outings from Shohei Ohtani, and he is hitting major velocity. He is still up at 100 miles an hour. You just have to wonder how long it's going to last, but you wonder when he's going to get up to full speed. You imagine that it's more of a ramp up to the playoffs. We're very far off from that, but you imagine it's timed in a way to where he's going to get into a groove by playoffs time and be the dominant pitcher. At the very least, that's what they're banking on, being the dominant pitcher that we've known for a long time. Nothing's dissuading me from that thought outside of maybe the fact that he's had 2 Tommy John surgeries on the same elbow and one more, and he's probably done pitching if I had to guess, just because too many Tommy John surgeries. I mean, there's just going to be no ligament left after a certain point. So we'll see how long it lasts from here. I think we should enjoy this version of Shohei Ohtani while we got it, because I think anyone with a rational mind has known that this portion where he's like the modern day Babe Ruth in the most impressive era to do it in, I think this is coming to an end here in the next couple of years. I think he's going to be mainly a hitter, and he's going to be a damn good hitter. Probably transition to maybe an outfield role or something along those lines. That's been speculated, but yet to be seen whether he's going to be good enough at those other skills to crack the lineup. Hell of an athlete, so I have no reason to think otherwise. But we got to enjoy this while we have it. we'll see how it progresses from here. And again, once again, we're knocking on wood for health in this episode. That may be in the title in some way, shape, or form. Knocking on wood for health. But outside of that, let's talk about some dumb shit, shall we? Shedeur Sanders, for the second time this offseason, has been caught speeding at a ridiculous clip. I believe he was going over 90 last time, if I'm not mistaken. Missed the court date, by the way, for that, which you just can't do. And then this time around goes 101 in a 60-mile-an-hour zone, I believe. So, yeah, that'll get you popped. That'll get you popped by a police officer. This kid's going to be a bust, man. You were hoping that being drafted in the 5th round was going to humble him a little bit. And, hey, not even really scratched the surface as far as even his rookie season is concerned. I just think in that organization, maybe Joe Flacco, the only light that you could possibly draw from this, quite frankly, is that Joe Flacco might be enough of a good influence to where maybe if Shedeur Sanders kind of gloms onto that steely veteran that's been in the league for like 20 years at this point, which he should do. It's what Dylan Gabriel should do too, by the way. They should be following Joe Flacco around and asking him questions constantly until he hates them for how much they're annoying him after a certain point. That's really the only light at the end of the tunnel here where you could maybe rationalize Shedeur can kind of get this thing picked up again. Outside of that, listen, I love Kevin Stefanski. No doubt in my mind he's been neutered from an organizational decision-making perspective. He's a good coach, but he's working with what the organization gives him because Jimmy Haslam cannot help but have his hands on the wheel at all times. He tried. He did so good for a few years there, and now he has just fully gripped the wheel again, and Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski are probably going to get the axe because of it in the long run, if we're being totally honest with ourselves here. But that's the situation they're in. I think the quarterback room outside of Joe Flacco is a bunch of hungry dogs that are looking to feast in some way, shape, or form, and all of them, it is a zero-sum game. Whoever gets the starting quarterback has done it at the expense of everyone else's reps, and in probably at least 2 cases, their jobs on the team. So we're going to see how that plays out, but listen, if the draft situation wasn't enough for him to see where this thing was going and maybe make some changes along the way and kind of humble himself and keep his head down and just go to work, I don't know what's gonna. So until further notice, I've tried to remain optimistic as much as possible and take an optimistic perspective. I'm still doing it here by hoping that he gloms on to Joe Flacco and gleans as much wisdom as possible and uses him as an NFL role model, a mentor at the NFL level, at least for this 1 year, because I don't know how long you're going to have Joe Flacco in the grand scheme of things. I don't see it happening. And I'd love to be proven wrong because I think a player like Shedeur Sanders, if he can mature a little bit, he'd be a fun player to watch play football. And there's questions about the arm strength and the decision making, but if he could dial it in mentally in a lot of ways and still keep some of that bravado, he'd be an objectively fun player that maybe you don't like rooting for, but maybe you certainly like rooting against. And there's nothing wrong with that. The game needs those guys. Without those guys, the game gets stale. You want villains in the game. I just don't think he's going to make it to that point because I don't think he's going to start at some point this season, I would imagine. And unless he's truly a horrific bust, he's going to play at some time this season because Jimmy Haslam overrode the front office to draft him. You call it what it is. That's exactly what happened. Why else would you draft Dylan Gabriel in the 3rd round, then turn around and draft Shedeur Sanders in the 5th round? Owner intervention is the only way it makes sense because I know Andrew Berry did not make that decision. So he's going to start at some point this season. He's going to get his opportunity. Until further notice, I don't have high optimism for how he's going to perform this year. For not the least reason because all of a sudden, sneaky bad offensive line. They've had a lot of attrition due to age and attrition. Attrition due to attrition. That was great analysis right there. Attrition due to age and injury has really kind of racked this offensive line over the years to where they're not the group they were 2-3 years ago at this point when they were rolling with Nick Chubb. I like the backs that they got in the draft, frankly. You could quibble with the draft strategy, but hey, man, if you're a challenged offensive line, it doesn't hurt to run the piss out of the ball. I'll tell you that much. So we'll see. Maybe they won't ask him to do too much if and when, by the way, Shedeur Sanders ultimately is called into the starting lineup. But won't know until we find out, I suppose. So, this speeding thing. Also, it's dangerous, by the way. Henry Ruggs killed somebody. I think people forget so easily because the news cycle goes so fast. But, Henry Ruggs killed a mother and her... I think he killed 2 people, by the way. Killed a whole car full of people, if I'm not... I might be totally butchering that. And I do apologize if that's the case. Still, killed at least 1 person. Can we leave it at that? We'll just leave it at that. And it was due to the fact that he was going way faster than Shedeur Sanders. Let's not do it wrong. That was straight reckless bullshit right there. But still, over 100 miles an hour, driving completely unsafe. And hey, man, I hope he learns a lesson just from that perspective because that could have been a lot more tragic. That stuff scares me, and I think it scares a lot of people that are just normal, maybe a little bit faster than the average person. I can't say that I drive the speed limit, generally speaking, within reason, flow of traffic if you're a cop listening to this. But like a normal driver, that sort of stuff scares normal drivers, and it's because that driving like that, you're a ticking time bomb. Just go ask Rashee Rice. I think he's lucky to have not seriously injured someone in his own right in his previous driving stint in Dallas there. But you just hope he learns. You just hope he learns before it gets way worse than it ultimately could have been. And I am sure he is being told the story of Henry Ruggs on a regular basis since this whole thing happened. I think, or maybe it was told once and then referenced on several occasions. That maybe this will be the incident that gets him gets his head out of the clouds and into reality, where he needs to do a hell of a lot of work and keep his head down. But we'll see. We'll see. Again, I'm not optimistic on that front. Okay, so we got a couple more headlines here. This is a big one. Really kind of not doing any sort of football this episode. But let's hit some football before we get into like totally other territory here one more time. So Jair Alexander cut from the Green Bay Packers. That was kind of everyone saw that coming. Post June 1, they just didn't designate him. They just waited literally until June 1st to cut him. Now he goes over to the Baltimore Ravens on a 1-year deal. It's basically a $5 million deal, $5 million deal, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know. Perfectly reasonable deal is the highlight of it, and a team that could use a cornerback, and why not take a risk on a veteran that's had a pretty good pass? So not a bad signing from the Ravens. We'll see how it goes. We'll see what Jair Alexander even has left in the tank. I mean, I would assume he passed a physical. If he's had said physical yet, I would assume he's had the physical. But I don't know. Who knows what that knee has in store, or how much of that was posturing to get out of town because he wasn't happy with the situation and happy with the contract stuff. We'll see. I just know it's not a bad flyer to take if it's Jair Alexander that we're working with here. And by the way, talked about the money aspect of this previously. Low money deal means there was a lot of smoke. There was some fire to go with that smoke when it comes to the injury news and the weird questions about his knee. This is a flyer contract. It's a flyer for a once very, very good player, but it is a flyer contract. It is a prove-it deal. So we'll see if Jair Alexander proves it. Not a bad risk to take, though. That's the moral of the story for the Baltimore Ravens, so I don't hate that at all. Next one up here, and we are fully out of football at this point. It's gone. We're off the rails now. But this is big. I mean, any sports show should talk about this to a certain extent, I would say. unless you're Josh Pate's college football show. In that case, brother, outside of storm chasing, I respect the hell out of the fact that you keep it all college football all the time. One of the more intense dudes in sports media, in a very funny way. I like that guy. But for us, we're straying right back into the NBA because that's where the most news is happening right now. Jeannie Buss sold her majority stake of the Lakers at a team valuation of $10 billion to CEO Mark Walter of TWG Group, i.e. finance money. He's a minority owner in several franchises across a bunch of sports. Most notably, though, he is a significant stakeholder in the LA Sparks and the LA Dodgers. So he's very invested in the LA community already. I think that's very important because I'll put it this way. The success of the Los Angeles Lakers directly feeds into the success of the other franchises that he owns. So I think he feels more of that fiduciary responsibility to field a really good basketball team and use his wealth and capital that the Buss family simply does not have to bring the Lakers where they should be, frankly, based on the market they're in, based on the history of the franchise, the most notable brand in the NBA. They should be better than they have been over the last several years since Kobe went out of his prime. So we'll see what it ultimately ends up being. I know Jeannie Buss is nominally still the quote-unquote governor there. So was Mark Cuban, and we saw how that worked out, seeing as Luka Doncic ended up with, well, wouldn't you know it, the Los Angeles Lakers. Interesting. Maybe things repeat themselves. I certainly hope not for the Lakers faithful out there. But Mark Walter, you don't buy a majority stake in a franchise if you don't want to run things, okay? And maybe he is a finance guy. He is an investor. So maybe this is one of those, you buy a whole lot of the company because you know it's a great investment, and ultimately you're there to be a silent partner. I don't think you buy that much of a corporation, of an entity of any kind, if you are not ready to exert some control. And especially since it is Mark Walter's money that's going to be spent here. Let's not get it twisted. And they're, I would say, poised to spend a whole lot of money. And we'll see how much they go into luxury tax. The luxury tax aprons are prohibitive in a way that the NBA has not seen before in its history. So we'll see how much they do that. But you don't let a guy like Mark Walter take control of this franchise if you don't think that is what is going to happen. That's what he brings to the table. He brings capital to the table. If you wanted someone that wasn't going to spend a whole lot of money and just sit on an asset, you would have just stayed owning the majority of the franchise, because then what other motivation do you have? So that, I would assume, that is the expectation. I just think Jeannie Buss is in for a rude awakening the first time, maybe not the first time, but the most critical time that Mark Walter and her disagree on a big-time decision. I think she's going to find out real quick who's in charge based on the financial commitments that have been made. But that is big news. That is big news, and I'm very interested to see how that plays out in the long run. I think it will play out for the benefit of the Lakers, like I said, because he is already very invested in the Los Angeles sports as far as an overall brand, I suppose. So the good of the community is good for the value of his current holdings, we'll say. So he is very motivated to continue making the Lakers great again, if you want to coin a phrase from popular culture, if you will. But we'll see. We'll see what Mark Walter ends up doing. I generally distrust finance guys when they get control of an entity, with the exception of Steve Cohen, owner of the Mets. That is who you want to be if you become the owner of your favorite franchise, because he was a lifelong Mets fan, and then made a shit ton of money off of investing in stocks, and ultimately got to that point and said, I want to make my favorite team as a child great. So I'm going to spend all the money that is in my pocket right now and then some to build a fantasy team in a way that almost no one but the Dodgers can. And I respect the hell out of that. Even though the results have not quite been there yet, I respect the hell out of the commitment. You just hope that's what you get from Mark Walter. Generally distrustful, though. generally distrustful. I always kind of see it through the lens of investing and profit margins when guys like this are involved, because that's how they've made all those billions of dollars. They didn't do it by, well, David Tepper is a different story. He actually did do that by having big brass balls and willing himself to be right. You can't discount the guy's work ethic and the fact that he's an absolute psycho, but that is also why owning the Panthers has been a bit of a hard thing there. For the average finance guy, though, it is very much a cold, calculating decision that is very much based on financial numbers, statistics. It does not have anything to do with the feelings of the people. It has everything to do with the quote-unquote efficiency of an organization, which just means how little money can you spend to make the most money possible, if you want to boil it down to a simple concept there. So, yet to be seen whether he is the fun finance guy like Steve Cohen, or whether he is the boring finance guy like, I don't know, who do we want to put there, right? Certainly, I don't know. I can't think of a whole lot of others. I'm sure they're out there. I just totally forget. Warren Buffett, if he owned an NFL franchise, that's what he'd be like. It always makes me laugh when people want to get Warren Buffett in there just to run an NFL franchise, because they would hate Warren Buffett as an owner. This man's eating at McDonald's like every day, and I'm sure he's stopped by this point because he's seen the value go down so much. And it probably just hurts him to the soul. But this is a man who's eaten like the same McDonald's breakfast and drove the same car for like 40 years at this point. I mean, Warren Buffett is a miser, absolute miser. Probably the greatest investor of all time, if we're just talking straight up numbers. But absolute miser. He's a super cheap ass. So there are finance guys like that. You just hope Mark Walter is not one of them. Okay, ending this thing off, we had a giant trade go through. It was either, I think, Saturday, Sunday, maybe Sunday morning. I want to say it was Sunday morning. We got the news Kevin Durant on a, fifth team in his NBA career. Let's do the counting here, folks. So we got the OKC Thunder. Then he went to the Warriors to win a couple of championships. Then he goes to the New Jersey Nets. Sorry, Brooklyn Nets, just dead named him there for a cup of tea. Goes to the Phoenix Suns for another cup of tea. And we'll see how long he stays now with the Houston Rockets. 5 teams for one of the greatest players of all time. That's not an exaggeration. Maybe the most gifted scorer in NBA history, if you just look at the raw efficiency statistics and what he's able to do with a ball at that size. He's a legitimate 7'2" guard. That's exactly what he is. A 7'2" guard that can do tall man things like block shots and play relentless defense. Truly a unique player that, I mean, deserves a lot of credit for guys like Victor Wembanyama and, frankly, Chet Holmgren. Chet Holmgren is a lot more of a big man build than Kevin Durant is, don't get me wrong, but the skilled big man was, and really the skilled kind of like power guard, I suppose you could say, big guard sort of build, kind of ushered in by Kevin Durant. So I kind of delineated there, but one of the greatest players of all time has been on 5 teams, and that's just frankly wild. And you can tell Kevin Durant only cares about winning. He doesn't care about legacy as much as some people might. He loves hoop, and I'll always respect him for that. But he's just got to take his hands off the wheel at some point. And hopefully, he's landed with an organization that knows what he's doing. But we'll see on that. I don't know how much better the Rockets got, and I don't discount that. The Rockets probably got a bit better the more I think about it. I mean, Kevin Durant instead of Jalen Green, which, by the way, I didn't even talk about the compensation here. So the Rockets sent Jalen Green, who was their leading scorer last year in the regular season, Dylan Brooks, who is a known defensive pest, one of their better defensive players in the team, the number 10 pick in this year's draft, which was the Phoenix Suns draft pick anyways, so works out serendipitously. All they had to do was get rid of Kevin Durant to get that pick back. And that's, hey, good deal. Also 5 second-round picks, which that's might as well. That's a footnote there. That's like, that's just pumping up the value chart on 2K as far as the trade meter goes. Those second-round picks, if one of them turn out to be a marginally good NBA player, that would be good. That's the hit rate on second round picks. So those are essentially de minimis at the end of the day when you talk about the trade value how the trade value is concerned on that particular factor. But traded one of their better defensive players, traded their leading scorer, and really a solid young player, in no small part because of the financial considerations there, but they didn't save a whole lot of money by bringing in Kevin Durant. He's got a huge cap hit already. So you're looking at a core of Kevin Durant, Alperen Şengün, who is frankly balling in the playoffs last year. Credit where credit is due on that front. Kind of a baby Jokic sort of build. Plays a lot like him, I suppose. I mean, led the team in points, rebounds, and assists in the playoff series there in the first round. But he'll be the second best player. Is he ready to get into that role? Who would the third best player be? Would it be Amen Thompson with that defense? I mean, that is a good thing that comes out of this, is maybe it gets Amen Thompson an even bigger role with Dillon Brooks not out there anymore. And honestly, I do think Amen Thompson's a better version of Dillon Brooks because he has that hard-nosed attitude and does talk shit and is a crazy person, but he backs it up by being a freak. An absolute athletic freak who can defend with the best in the entire NBA. I think they found themselves a gem of a defensive player there in Amen Thompson. It's just, and maybe there's a player that I'm leaving out. I'm sure there's someone that I'm forgetting somewhere along the way that maybe they'll step up and be that third scoring option. But is that top three really going to get you to an NBA Finals? I don't know. I don't know that's, I think Kevin Durant improved his situation to a good extent to where he's going to be in the playoffs, has a much better coach there in Ime Udoka. But I don't know. We'll see if this results in the championship that Kevin Durant so desperately wants. I just feel like he should hunker down in Houston. I'll just put it that way. Even if this doesn't necessarily work out in the long term, I just feel like pick a spot to end off the career, become a fan favorite in Houston, ingratiate yourself with that community. Maybe go make amends at some point with Oklahoma City. If you get to a point in your career where you can humble yourself, take a little bit less money because you're an older player, and just do one last ride with a team that I'm sure is going to be perennially great by that point because of the pure draft capital that they have and the players that they already have in the building and the fact that they have the best GM in the entire league in Sam Presti. Oklahoma City or stay in Houston. That's all I ask from Kevin Durant going forward. I mean, especially however many years post-Achilles, you've certainly seen the athleticism take a hit over the years. Really, he wasn't the same athletically, and this happens invariably with these Achilles injuries and pretty big Achilles injuries. Pretty big Achilles injury that we'll end off the show with. Probably should have hit it more towards the top, but I'm a forgetful boy at the end of the day. Really, since that Achilles injury, he wasn't the same athlete. He was still a great scorer. He will be a great scorer till the day he dies. I wouldn't be shocked if in the last year of Kevin Durant's career, he scores like 15 to 17 points a game and just tells himself, you know what, that isn't me, so I got to walk away from this game. That wouldn't shock me at all, but he's also a hooper. At the very core of his being, Kevin Durant is a hooper. So he might be one of those guys that plays till he's like, till the wheels fall off, till he's like 43, 44 years old if he can swing it by that point. Maybe he's one of those players that the game will retire him at the end of the day. But I still think at this point in his career, just stick with the location, man. You've bounced around for quite a while. A sixth team for a player as great as Kevin Durant is just a travesty. And even Vince Carter, I feel like, I don't think he cheapened his legacy necessarily, but he did kind of, again, sully is not the right word, but colored his legacy a little bit with how many teams he bounced around to and for how long that he played. I just hope Kevin Durant doesn't do that because he's such a transcendent, gifted player and has been that way for a long, long time. I just hope he kind of finds a home, settles down here in Houston for a little bit, and at the very least plays on some really good teams. You've already won your championships at this point, man. You've won 2. You don't have anything to prove to anyone. You're one of the greatest. I mean, a shoo-in Hall of Famer, probably first ballot Hall of Famer whenever his name comes up. Just ride off into the sunset, man. Just maybe you win one more here in Houston. If you stick it out and you ingrain yourself into that culture, maybe you win one more before it's all said and done, and that would be great. But maybe we just kind of build for a little bit here. I don't know. I don't love all the player movement in this modern era quite so much. It's one of the many factors that has cheapened the NBA game in my mind. It is still a lot of great players, the best collection of players, and it's not getting any worse. I'll tell you that much, especially with the game growing all around the world. But you do pine a little bit for the days where you could get used to players on a team for a long, long time. Maybe the Oklahoma City Thunder kind of bucked that trend in the long run, but we'll see. I bloviated enough. We're right at like 45 minutes, so we'll end it off with this. Oklahoma City Thunder win their first championship in franchise history, a richly deserved reward for, kind of the long journey that this fan base has gone through, the small market nature of their team being in Oklahoma City, the uniqueness of them being there because they're truly the only major professional sports team in that entire professional, I'll say, not college, professional. And we'll get to that connection here in just a second. Maybe the biggest kind of boom that they're going to see here is from this team. It's a unique atmosphere there with Oklahoma City Thunder. You get a combination. The Oklahoma State and the Oklahoma Sooner fans come together for this basketball team and bring a really unique, rich fan environment that is truly, I would say, the best group of fans in the entire NBA. They make games worth watching, worth going to. They have a truly elite environment there in Oklahoma City. And they have all the draft capital in the world. Thank you, Paul George. That was... if you want to make an NFL parallel, the Paul George trade when he got traded to the LA Clippers for 6 first-round picks back in the day, and I think we all kind of knew what was going to happen after that. That's the Herschel Walker trade. You remember the Dallas Cowboys traded Herschel Walker to the Minnesota Vikings, unfortunately, for a raft of draft compensation and players, whatnot, that ultimately ended up building the core of what that Dallas Cowboys dynasty ended up being. And I think we're going to see it here again. We already saw it here again. We saw the beginnings of it here with the Oklahoma City Thunder trading Paul George to the LA Clippers because Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's young as hell. They got him in that trade, by the way, directly as a player. It was one of the things that, like the Rockets giving up Jalen Green to go to the Phoenix Suns, the Clippers had to give up Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in order to get Paul George. Ultimately, I think if they would have fast-forwarded a couple years and seen where Kawhi Leonard is at this point with the health situation going on, and 2, where Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is, I think they would have approached that situation quite a bit differently. But as it is, hindsight's 50-50, as the great poet Cam Newton once said. So here you are now, and the Oklahoma City Thunder are about to go on a dynasty run because they have the best GM in all the NBA. They have the best young core in the whole NBA. They play relentless defense. They have a personal identity. They now have championship experience. I think you're going to see them. And maybe the run won't look quite as dominant as some previous runs, like the Michael Jordan Bulls, obviously. The Celtics back in the day with Bill Russell, if you want to go all the way back in history. Even like Kobe Bryant and stuff like that. Maybe dynasties like that are dead at this point due to the salary tax aprons. The luxury tax aprons, and what that does to the parity situation in the NBA. It's going to make it more impressive, though, in my mind, because of that parity aspect and the level of the whole league around them. They did win the championship, and it is all up from here. Either they're going to trade those draft picks for another big-time player, or they're going to keep them and just keep reloading and I don't know what they're going to do with some of these contracts. I have a sneaking suspicion if they just keep nailing draft picks, they're just going to keep trading players for draft compensation to get more players to ultimately trade and keep that draft compensation to a point where maybe several years down the line they get to a point where Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Chet Holmgren are getting up there in age and are no longer at what they once were doing, and maybe they just plow all that draft compensation right back into starting it over again, and we just keep on going and going. Are we going to see a new New England Patriots of the NBA? Hey, I'm holding my horses on that one, but can't put it past Sam Presti. Can't put it past him. He's a great GM. Unfortunately, there was some bad news there. We were shaping up for an all-time Game 7 in the first quarter, and then Tyrese Halliburton been dealing with a calf injury, which referenced the previous Kevin Durant Achilles injury. Ever since then, we've all been very aware and gun-shy of the fact that a calf injury often is code for what lies underneath of that calf, so to speak. The Achilles tendon, if you want to put a fine point on it, is generally, that's what the code is for that, for a quote-unquote calf strain. It's more of an Achilles tendon strain, or at the very least, it is very focused on the calf, which puts more strain on the Achilles tendon, and you put yourself at major risk. I understand it's Game 7. He is truly in a no-win situation there. We're talking about Tyrese Halliburton when it comes to whether to sit out a Game 7 of the NBA Finals when it matters most, or go out there and kind of risk the rest of your career to a certain extent. Truly in a lose-lose situation there. It was bad all around. It was dangerous all around. Ultimately, Tyrese Halliburton plays, has an explosive first quarter, gets the adrenaline going, pop, tears his Achilles, and now he's probably going to be out all of next year. We'll see what he looks like the year after. That's just tough, devastating. You hate to see it. It's going to change his career just like it changed Jason Tatum's career when it was all said. It's going to change Jason Tatum's career. Damian Lillard, it's probably ultimately going to make him a shell of what he once was, especially with him already having lost some steam over the last couple of years. I don't know what Damian Lillard looks like coming off of this Achilles injury, but I'm telling you what, I think one impact is going to be his defense is going to be some of the worst in the NBA for anyone who may consider themselves a starting caliber guard. And it already wasn't great. You add the Achilles factor in there. I don't know what kind of Damian Lillard we're going to get after this, quite frankly, from a lot of different perspectives. But specifically with Tyrese Halliburton, it sucks. It sucks because he ascended in this postseason. He truly turned himself into a superstar in this postseason from the reputational perspective, doing all that stuff in clutch time that he did all throughout the postseason. And for this to end, that just sucks. That sucks so much. Had such an epic postseason, and now we're not going to see him at all next year when he was supposed to strike while the iron was hot and really have a follow-up season that cemented him as one of the faces of the NBA. It sucks from that perspective. It sucks from, you don't know how he's going to look coming off of this. The athleticism is going to take a hit, just to what extent, and how is that going to manifest itself, in what ways. It just sucks. It just sucks a lot. I mean, I will take a little bit of a grain of optimism here at the end of the day. If you know, we want to be optimistic where we can be. If we want to be optimistic, we're not seeing Tyrese Halliburton running around dunking on people for the most part. We're not seeing him do a whole lot of that. He's doing a lot of shooting, doing a whole lot of fancy passes, a lot of skill stuff. It's not necessarily high-flying dunks and stuff like that. So maybe this won't affect him quite as much, but it's going to affect him in some way, shape, or form. And that just sucks. It's the same reason it sucks with Jason Tatum. It's more sad to see it with Damian Lillard because, you know, that's probably just about all she wrote. Maybe a few more years he tries to stick around, but I'd be shocked if he was really close to the player he once was. But it sucks more for these players in their primes because you just know you're not going to see the exact same thing you saw before. And there's no way around that. Maybe Achilles surgery is going to get to a point one day where that's not the case. Maybe it gets a lot more like ACL surgery where you can come back and have an Adrian Peterson-like season and, you know, still be a very, very good player at the end of the day. But we're just not there yet, and I don't know when we get there. So that's a sad note to end on, but yeah, congratulations to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Not an asterisk in my mind. That's just the trials and tribulations you have to go through for a first championship. I think they're going to make themselves into a very, very good franchise in the long run. But with all that said, we've stretched this thing to 55 minutes, and I have no idea how, quite frankly. But that's all she wrote, folks, for this episode of Unqualified Analysis. I have been your host. I am still your host, Caleb. You can follow me on the socials at CalebVUA. Subscribe wherever you're listening to this. Like, rate, all that good stuff. Share even if you feel so inclined to do so. Help me grow this thing just a tad mite bit. Outside of that, you can shoot me a DM if you want to contribute to the show. Maybe shoot me an email. Unqualifiedanalysis@gmail.com is the email address if you want to go over there and shoot me an email. I got to probably check that here. I haven't checked that in quite a bit. In addition to that, you already know what it is here, folks. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Unqualified Analysis. As always, I have just about no clue what I'm talking about. But one thing I did learn this week, if I can ever get it pulled up, yeah, this one's been sitting in the tank for too long. We'll circle back around to the NBA related one here in a couple of weeks, but roughly one in every 1,100 people in the United States attends the Indy 500. Goodness gracious, roughly 1 in 1,100 people in the U.S. attend the Indy 500 every year. Think about that for a second. 1 in 1,100 people attend the Indy 500 every year. That's kind of crazy. Kind of crazy when you think about it. Wild stuff. A massive event, and there you have it, folks. I'm going to go edit this thing and hopefully eat dinner here in the next, I don't know, half hour-ish or so. You guys have yourselves a good week. Optimistically, I will see you here next Tuesday, but don't hold me to that because things at work are still crazy. I did have to check out a little bit early today to come record this. So that may not be the case next Monday. That I may not have that luxury. So we'll play it by ear. Hopefully I talk to you guys next week. Either way, enjoy the week. Enjoy the hot weather, I suppose. It's been really hot out here. But I will see you guys optimistically next Tuesday. Bye-bye.